Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. Another season coming to an end here on the 11th of June 2023. It is the final round of the Shannons Insurance NTE Series from the Chicago Street Circuit. We have had some fantastic racing over the course of this season, over the previous 5 rounds, and now we come to a circuit that is deceptively difficult in the iRacing built Chicago Street course, of course, used for a test bed for NASCAR's eventual introduction of this track to their real-life schedule. To bring it to you all live across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch is myself, Reese Gardiner. Got Daniel Leet with me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy handling production behind the scenes, bringing you these live pictures on SimSpeed TV. Well, Dan, been looking forward to this one for quite some time. We don't see many broadcasted events outside of eNASCAR at the Chicago Street Course, and it is a simple layout from the air. Looks quite easy on paper, but when you get into the driver's seat, it is anything but.
Yeah, good evening, Reese, and everyone tuning in. Great to have you back for the final round of the Shannons NT Series tonight. And you're right, mate, the track is very simple when you look at it on a top-down pay-per-view segment, but plenty of challenges. Not only are the walls right up close for the drivers to, maximize their corner exits, you've got a little bit of undulation between turns 10 and 11, and then back down through 11 and 12. So there's plenty of moves for the guys to try and set these cars up. They're going to be very tricky, but as we've come to see with any form of racing on a street circuit, whether it's Chicago or the likes of Long Beach, it's very technical, very tricky, and it's going to call for everything the drivers have on offer tonight.
Yeah, absolutely everything. It also looks a little bit shorter than it actually is. It's 3.5 Ks long, this street circuit, and the roads are pretty wide in many places, but drivers are going to have to be careful through the section going from turns 7 to 11. That is quite difficult, a bit of elevation change involved there. And of course, it being a street circuit, it's very bumpy as well. It'll certainly put the cars through their paces. And speaking of the cars, these are the championship standings for the Dev Series, which is the first round of racing we're going to be seeing tonight. At series conclusion, Cameron Edwards is leading the championship by a big margin over Matthew McMillan, with Dylan Seitz and Tyrone Anderson not that far behind. James Zeitz there in the top 5 as well, looking to break into potentially the top 3 after a very difficult last round at Bathurst.
Yeah, Bathurst was a tricky challenge, and as we've seen throughout the course of the season, I mean, these cars notoriously difficult to get the most out of, but consistency has been the #1 key to the game here. Cam Edwards, as you say, Reese, out in front, but he has been Mr. Consistency throughout this championship. Second position through the first 3 rounds, took the win last time out at Bathurst, and he's only had 1 race where he didn't score a podium finish.
Yeah, it's certainly been a fantastic season from Cameron Edwards, and there's plenty more to come there if he can get the times down. These are the goings in for the event tonight. 15 minutes of qualifying the drivers are in the middle of at the moment, and then a single 20-minute race. And looking at the practice pace, We're seeing times of about a minute 40 to a minute 41 being on the pace. So I would say that it's going to be perhaps a 13-lap race, just as a rough estimate, but we'll see for sure when the drivers go out there. Dylan Seitz currently on the top of the qualifying standings. 5 drivers have set lap times so far, and with 5 minutes done in the session, you would expect that many have actually get a time on the board, Dan, because this circuit very difficult to set a valid lap at. I mean, look at how close the walls are.
Yeah, it's right, mate. And this is that tricky section you noted on just a moment ago between sort of turn 7 all the way through to 11 here. It's almost a bit of one-way kart track style stuff. A lot of bumps for the guys to navigate through. And actually, iRacing have put in some recent changes here with the release of this circuit since we first went to it many years ago when it came out, to shorten out that little back section run before you crest into the final corner of the race. So that in itself is a little bit of a challenge for the drivers to navigate and get their heads around, but very, very tricky to find those apexes. Just kiss them ever so slightly and run those cars up against the wall where you need to.
Yeah, I'm going to have to update my track map a little bit. There's been a couple of shifts in the specific roads that are taken around that section as Seitz goes ever faster. 1 minute 40.26 is now the time to beat. He's run 0.2 faster than he did in practice. Shane Newen's there, jumping into the pit lane. Shane has yet to set a lap time. And Matthew McMillan currently in second spot. He is 0.7 of a second off Dylan Seitz right now in that WKMP BCF and super cheap liveried machine. And that looks like a nice aggressive run through the first corner here and down into this very tight right-hander. It's not quite the first corner I noticed there as he makes his way through turns 7 and 8. Got to try and hug the inside there to widen the entry to turn 10 and then hard on the brakes once again for turn 11. I think it's absolutely imperative around this place that you need a car with a pointy front end, and certainly this car has that in spades. Ooh, easy does it though. Just clips the inside wall on the entry to the final corner. Will that be a valid lap? No, it won't. That is how easily things can fall apart around here.
Yeah, it only takes the slightest of touches there to negate what could be a good lap out there. And we'll see. Seitz got still plenty of time on the board to have another crack and see whether he can improve on his lap time there. But we'll wait to see what he can do. But yeah, as you say, Reece, it's going to be very tricky, especially later on when we get to the V8s. In that, yeah, again, fixed setup series as we've seen throughout the course of this one. The compliance of these cars is going to be very, very key around here. And as we saw from the guys working their way over that turn 7, 8 complex around the back, while it is, you need that nose to stick in there, you've got to watch the rear trying to get away from it. And we've already seen, if we think back all the way to round 1, 5 rounds ago, where we saw the guys really struggle in this car to get momentum and the back end planted. That was a smooth racetrack. Come out to here and it's all out the window. The track is so much bumpier than what we saw that it's going to take a lot of finesse on not only the steering input, as we watch John there down in the little corner having a crack on the sim, but it's about getting the throttle applications ever so perfect around here.
Yeah, we'll give John Van Ree a wave as well. I think he knows that he's on the broadcast feed right now. Might be piling the pressure on just a little bit. Those rises that you see in those straights connecting those two sections of the racetrack actually run over the railway line that comes into, I believe, Chicago's Central Station. So a little bit of elevation change on this track. Not so much through the corners, but certainly the rise is high enough that it might introduce a couple of issues. If cars are spun in front of you, you might not see them until it's too late. David Worrell having to take a couple of stabs at the wheel on his way through the first corner here. And then turn 2, how does this go for him? Well, he's definitely wheeling it, isn't he? He's, if anything, struggling to keep the rear end in check, which is something we have seen all the way through the course of this season. These GR86 Cup cars are notoriously, deceptively difficult to drive. And then this very fast entry into another braking zone, leading you onto the effective back straight around here. That's another place where we might see plenty of incidents tonight, not just in this category, but in the V8s to come as well.
Yeah, it's a real momentum section of the circuit there, and it forces you to carry a lot of speed through there. It's very deceptive in the way you negotiate that section of the circuit, in that it requires a huge amount of commitment to chuck the car in there, but you've also got to hope that it sticks and holds, and you can keep it just off that wall before you tip it back in onto what is effectively the back straight of this circuit.
Well, it looks like a clean run through turns 7, 8, and 9. How does turn 10 go for David Worrell? Nice and smooth wall on the inside, but something that can still be very easily hit. Track widens a bit on the exit, and it seems the rear end is still giving David some trouble. But one more braking zone to go, and this will be the end of the lap. And there's a few minutes remaining in the session, with which gives David Worrell a little bit of extra time to get a better time in. Currently, his banker is a 1 minute 47.3, and that is quite a ways off the pace that John Van Ree has set. John is about 1.4 seconds quicker. Speaking of, I believe this is Van Ree, having an issue in turn 1 and actually giving Shane Newens a little bit of a tap on the way through as well. If you lose the rear end coming into that first turn, that's another thing that we got to consider about this circuit. There's basically no runoff area.
No, that's exactly right. And what little bit there has now been moved and changed for the guys. So yeah, there is a slight section they may be able to run off as we watch the guys just tip the car through the circuit here. But you're right, there's not anything that realistically they can get down as an escape road, unlike the likes of Long Beach, where you've got quite a few options to run the car on and clear out of the way. Here, unfortunately, you hit that wall too hard, you start the pinball effect, and hopefully you don't have anyone around you to collect a stricken car in the middle of the road.
Speaking of, for Dylan Seitz, managed to avoid said stricken car, and making his way now through the final sector of the circuit, over the bridge once and then over the bridge twice after he's negotiated this section. Really nice to see these aerial shots and just take in the sights around this area of Chicago. Really enjoying the fact that iRacing was recruited by NASCAR to build this track in the virtual world, to test it out before it was added to the schedule in the real world. And the attention to detail really shows. All the buildings are there on the outside of the circuit. Really lovely texture detail on some of those buildings as well. You can almost see individual bricks in places as the final turns were negotiated nicely. And Shane Newens now will be looking to improve on P6. He has got 1.1 seconds to make up if he wants to get into the top 5.
Yeah, that's a tall ask to find around this place, as we've seen. Quite a few guys already have some issues with navigating into the walls there, so plenty of option to gain that time. But it's just about being consistent, hoping that a lot of the guys have spent the last week since, or the last fortnight since we were out on track at Bathurst, getting accustomed to what this kind of a tight confines of a street circuit are going to be. But plenty of time to find out on circuit. Tyrone Anderson looking pretty healthy at the moment, up there in second position. He put a nice time in, a 140.31 as well. Hopefully he can keep the car on the black stuff, which he's unfortunately struggled for a little bit in this one, but definitely got the pace out there tonight, Reese.
Yes, and despite John Van Ree's pace getting him into 8th, he will not be starting from that spot on the grid you just saw there up the top. He has been given a pit lane start for a rules breach involving escaping back to the pits without permission. Now, that's another thing you got to consider for NTE series. In qualifying, in an open one like this, you cannot escape back to the pits without asking race control for permission first. And Shane Newens getting up on 3 wheels there through the final corner. Just a minute remaining in the session. And Newens Sets a 1 minute 43.3 there now. That's a good improvement there for Shane. Brings him a little bit closer to Michael Gore. Still not quite enough to break into the top 5 though. Car 25 of David Worrell looking to set a faster lap as well. He's just come out of the final turn himself. And it's going to be a 145.7 for David. That will put him now ahead of John Van Rie's time. And a nice improvement for him in the final stages of this session. We're going to get another view here of, I believe that's Newens there, going across the start-finish line. And, well, maybe forgetting to brake for turn 1. That's unfortunate. Hopefully we don't see too much of that in the race.
Yeah, it's an interesting line that he's taken on that one, extremely shallow into 1, but maybe just trying for what it's going to be like in the race day with sending one up down the inside there. But yeah, you've got a few rules the guys need to keep an eye on, especially that no escape rule, and that will hurt him a bit there, as we see Dylan Seitz now back out on circuit. Great sector 2 for him that time through, a 30.29. That's his quickest sector in the middle of the lap so far. This could be a bit of an improvement on his time here, Reese.
Certainly could. 1 turn to go now. And he was looking very aggressive through the turn 8 and 9 section. Let's see now whether he can improve on a 39.8. Oh, goodness me. Only 4 thousandths of a second off his fastest. And he did run a little bit narrow coming out of the penultimate turn, so maybe that was all that was in it. But he doesn't have to worry, because he is in the P1 spot by a good margin over Tyrone Anderson. Checkered flag now flies in the session, and I believe that's everyone done for those 15 minutes. Now we have 20 minutes of head-to-head competition coming up. It will be headed up by, of course, Seitz and Anderson on the front row. Then we've got Matthew McMillan in the number 22, starting in 3rd place, alongside championship leader, the number 11, of Cameron Edwards. What kind of start will he get? Michael Gore is going to start in 5th spot alongside Shane Newens, and then we have Michael Power and David Worrell starting off the 4th row of the grid. WK&P locking out that row there. John Van Rie running fast enough for 9th, but he is going to have to start from the pits, which means Jack Gray might just be able to get a good advantage here. Gray did set a time in practice, but did not in qualifying, and I'm not too sure if he's even in the server right now, so we'll have to wait and see on that front. So, 20 minutes coming up here, Dan. Like every race in the 86s, it's going to be about survival, but even more so at this street circuit.
Yeah, survival is going to be key. It'll be interesting to see how the guys manage to negotiate the first turn and get themselves into that little bit of a rhythm to work around the streets here of Chicago. But we've seen some great racing so far throughout the course of the championship, and expecting good things for these guys to finish on a high tonight.
Yeah, certainly expecting that. He is hoping that the drivers put on a show one final time here at Chicago to round off what has been an epic season of the Shannons Insurance NTE series, and the Dev series has certainly brought the excitement and kicked things off really well every single round. The drivers just getting onto the grid now, waiting for the call of the green flag. Seitz will be starting there on the front row, and it's a bit of a staggered grid here. Tyrone Anderson going to be starting a little bit behind him and to his left. So it's a nice clear track ahead of Anderson, but he has a little bit of extra ground to make up if he does get a good start.
Yeah, it'll be all about just holding on to that second position for him at that point, and just trying to keep Matt McMullen just behind him there, which he's got every chance of doing if he can just keep that shallow line, but it's all about that momentum as we were talking about before.
Right, 1 minute and 5 seconds left. We also have race control and safety car in the session as well. If there is a huge incident out on track and a driver has to request a tow in a place where they wouldn't conceivably be able to be pulled off the circuit under green flag conditions, then the safety car will be called out and the drivers will have to form up. I'm sure that everyone behind Dylan Seitz will be hoping for such an event to happen, as long as they're not the car involved. Either way, Look at this here from Tyrone Anderson. Interesting to see that he is angling his steering wheel a little bit to the right. I don't know if that's intentional, but it would certainly be good for him to try and get into line as fast as possible if he gets a good start, because a tight entry to turn 1 with cars all around you could be a recipe for disaster. We will be riding on board with Anderson on the Zoom feed, along with a couple other drivers in this field, including John Van Reet and David Worrell. We'll see how they all finish in the end, but the timer hits 0. Number 21 of Dylan Seitz revs up that 4-cylinder engine, and it's a chorus that joins him. Jack Gray does join the grid in the last spot. The green flag flies, and we are away. Looked like a good initial getaway from Anderson, but the second phase of the start is going to belong to Matthew McMillan there for second spot. Nice clean entry here for Dylan Seitz, and Anderson fights back against McMillan through the first turn. They remain side by side, room given by all drivers, which is great to see, and John Van Ree takes his pit lane start. McMillan still alongside Tyrone Anderson and gets the run coming out of turn 2, instantly into the slipstream here for Tyrone Anderson. The straights aren't particularly long here, but the slipstream might still be worth something if you can get it down. And he has the inside line now for the next corner, but it will be defended from McMillan. But unfortunately, he gets into the wall. Oh, easy does it. That could have been a lot worse than it was.
Yeah, very fortunate there for McMillan just to keep that one on the straight and narrow, but we'll have to see whether he's picked up any steering damage as a result of that one. Tyrone putting a huge amount of pressure on him to try and make that move stick, but what it has done, Reese, is really open up the gap now for Dylan Seitz. He's got a 1.6 second, almost 2 second advantage now, and we're not even halfway through this lap yet.
Yeah, we also saw that Anderson was getting the wall as well, and he clips the inside barrier. That gives him a big old wobble and allows Cameron Edwards through potentially. No, track is too narrow through that section, and that is not a passing zone. So both Anderson and McMillan escaping too much of a penalty from clobbering the barriers, and doesn't seem like they've gotten much physical damage either. So top 3 spacing out a bit now, but Cameron Edwards has one heck of a pack behind him. Have a look at that. He's got Michael Gore, Newens, Gray, and Worrell all behind him. Mick Power dropping off the back end a little bit, and John Van Ree all on his lonesome at the rear of the field. We see Gray there in the background. He's going to try and put a move on Newens at some point, but he is flipping to the entry line for turn 1 very early and super late on the brakes. That first turn a lot quicker than it looks. The track is just so wide, and there's so much room to change your line around.
Yeah, this is a good look just through those cars there having a bit of a moment. Let's go back to the replay of lap 1 here. And you just see there for Matt McMillan started to lose the rear end of that car hard into the wall. And Tyrone doing a really good job there just to get his car slowed down enough to be able to tip that one in. We might see if we can also check out the incident from Tyrone a bit later on. But Jack Gray right in contention here on the back of Shane Ewan's race. He's looking pretty racy right now.
Yeah, back of the grid start for Jack Gray, who was doing all right in the standings for the first couple of rounds of the season. Unfortunately, falling down the order thanks to a run of poor results. Hopefully he can get some of those points back here in this final round. Has to find his way past Newens first. Oh, and a little bit of a technical issue isn't going to help matters either. Oh, and neither is that. Goodness me, I think he just turned in a bit early, bounced off the inside barrier and then into the outside concrete, and that has resulted in a little bit of physical damage to that car. We'll see how much it affects him, as that's one of the WKMP cars around. Mick Power, who was already dropping off the back of that second pack, evidently having a whoopsie of his own.
Yeah, not really sure what happened there to poor old Mick Power, but looks like he'll still be able to get that car back into the race. So we'll look to see whether he can come forward a little bit more as first real decent lap there. Dylan Seitz back into to good pace there, 1:41.01. So just about getting back to near where the qualifying time is at this point in the initial phase of the race. Really good run for him, and that gap still continuing to increase back to Matt McMillan as well, out over 3 seconds now.
Yeah, Dylan Seitz dominating this race so far, riding those bumps very well. And Cam Edwards, though, in the box seat to take the title in the Dev Series. It will be interesting to see what he can do from here. There's a lot of gaps to make up as we check out an aerial view of Tyrone Anderson just losing the rear end, coming through the right angle right-hander and clobbering the wall on the outside with his rear. Meanwhile, this is what happened to Mick Power. He was already carrying damage from an incident at the corner before this one. Very heavy dents and bumps on that number 99.
Yeah, so looks like maybe John Van Ree had already gotten past him at that point in time as well. As we've seen Michael Gore very, very slow, and that's a lot of right-hand damage on that car. Is that a wheel gone?
Yeah, that's a wheel gone for Michael Gore. How on earth did that happen? Looks like it might have happened at turn 1. Either way, he's got a turn 6, sorry. Yes. Turn 6 and turn 1 look exactly the same to me. This is how it happened. Enters a little too hot, loses the rear, and then the front right just completely disconnects. He tries to keep it going, but yeah, the steering arm is broken there on that front right. No way that thing is continuing at any kind of reasonable pace.
No, he's doing well to get the three-wheeled wagon back, though. And I think, yeah, he just ducks it into the lane now. So that's fortunate, but that was a huge lick in the wall there for him. And we'll see whether he's able to continue on later on. But back out front, Dylan Seitz just continuing his march forward here. 4 seconds now, the gap out over Matt McMillan, who's now jumped or still holding on to that second spot at the moment. Tyrone Anderson still sitting there in third. And yeah, it's all for Dylan Seitz now. If he can just keep it on the straight and narrows like he's doing, Reese, this one's in the bag.
Oh, Shane Newen's slow. It looks like he's picked up a lot of damage somewhere along the line. This is setting things up for the V8s. We'll have to see what turn 4 has done for Shane Newens. Yeah, you know, I've seen that happen so many times. There's that bump on the entry into the 4th turn there on the inside, and it seems that it really sends the rear end of these cars out wide. I've even seen our leader Dylan Seitz come a cropper of that, but yeah, Newens now dropping down the order, and I think he's got some pretty major suspension damage on that thing.
Yeah, it's not going to help him too much there, down in, 7th position at the moment. Michael Gore back out on circuit. He's got the extra wheel back on the wagon there, and he's right to go, but that took a lot of time out of his challenge tonight. He'll be just trying to squeak it home back inside the top 10.
Yeah, going to be tough here for car number 39. But Michael seems nice and sedate here, just getting back up to pace. Using a sequential shifter, interestingly. I believe the GR86 Cup car in real life is a paddle shift, but what would I know? Either way, it's what he's comfortable with, and it's what he's running. He is about to go a lap down. You do see Dylan Seitz up behind him there. Into turn 1 they will come once more. And Seitz continuing to set fast laps here. However, seems he might have backed off a little bit, because Matthew McMillan was the fastest car on track that time by 1 minute 41.3. The quickest pace, 41.5 for our leader. But the fastest lap overall belongs to Tyrone Anderson. And considering how much damage Anderson's picked up, I don't think he'll be getting very close to that.
No, well, it was a 40.6, so 2/10 quicker than what we've seen from Seitz throughout the course of this race, but we have already seen Anderson have a couple of moments in the wall there, and I think might have just caught it again as he starts working his way around to finish this lap off. But so far looking pretty good, very, very racy still, which is what we've come to expect from Tyrone at the moment, and he's still looking to apply that pressure to the back of Matt McMillan.
Yep, trying to get second place back here. And if these guys end up coming together, or if one of them has an issue, that will be even more of an advantage for Cameron Edwards in the driver's standings. The point situation is essentially Edwards needs to finish 4th or higher to win the championship. And guess what position he's in? 4th. So all he has to do, really, is keep it out of the walls, and he's got this sorted.
Yeah, well, it's the epitome of a nice Sunday drive, isn't it? He's got a healthy margin over Jack Gray there in 5th position, and all he's got to do is just putter it around the course for the next 9.5 minutes.
The rate the cars are going through these corners, you'd be forgiven for thinking that Cameron Edwards is giving it as much welly as he possibly can. But, well, he's keeping the gap consistent, isn't he? His last lap was actually only half a tenth off Dylan Seitz's last lap. And Seitz was the quickest car on track that time by. So, provided that the traffic of Michael Gore up ahead makes things easy for him, Edwards could be making up a little bit more time on the battling pair of McMillan and Anderson up ahead of him. The gap between them is only a few seconds, and Anderson is edging ever closer to McMillan here. You see just how hard Anderson is driving this car, and every time we've checked in on him, be it in sim or on the Zoom feed, he's always been one of the most spectacular drivers in the Dev Series. He wheels that car like no one else does.
Oh, he's finding every tenth of a second left in it as we have a look. Him closing up under the draft there, gets on the brakes very, very late. Can he get the car tipped in? He does nicely, and that's a nice move there up into 2nd position. And now he's got to keep the eyes forward. Don't worry too much about what's going on in the rear view with Matt McMillan, but I can guarantee you Matt will be looking to try and make a move here ever so soon as he gets a cheeky beer in for his efforts there.
Indeed. It's probably half of where he gets his courage in the form of liquid courage. But here's the corner where he made his mistake early on in the race. He does manage to avoid it this time, but oh no! Easy does it. Looks like McMillan entered a little bit more aggressively and turned him around. That puts Cameron Edwards up into 3rd place. So truly in the box seat to win the title now, but Anderson, oh no, yeah, Jack Gray. Oh dear. This is no good. Seems that Gray lost it all by himself, but I think we are going to have to check out that incident again between Tyrone Anderson and Matthew McMillan. Move had been made and done very well. Did Anderson lose it by himself is the question. The onboard will tell the story. I think, I mean, he did slide a little bit on the way into the corner, but I think he was going to make it out. And from my view, there was contact there.
Yeah, look, I would agree with the contact there because interestingly, when you looked at the two lines that both drivers were taking, Anderson was a little bit wider probably than what McMillan was expecting. So the speed right at the apex there was maybe just a smidgen slower for Anderson. And you know, when you're as grip limited in these cars as we are, it doesn't take much for it just to find the back end there and turn around. Then we saw Jack Gray have a moment, as you say, all on his own. Bit of a sympathy spin, probably saw the relatives and a car stationary, and unfortunately just lost the back end there as well.
Well, Anderson has managed to get up and running again, but potentially at a reduced rate of pace with extra damage to the bodywork. He's got Michael Power behind him now, and Mick obviously having his issues early on. He's gotten his fast repair done, and he has a nice, clean car. We'll see how much of a pace difference there is there, but it's turned into a nice 3-car battle pack with Anderson, Power, and, of course, Jack Gray behind them.
Well, this little bit of a change of position there with Anderson. As you say, the man that keeps on claiming those points at the moment, Cam Edwards, now up into that 3rd position, just helping him cement the hand on the championship as well, Reese, now.
Here's Shane Newens making a move on John Van Ree. And John goes wide to let him go. Seems like that was a very easily decided maneuver, and Newens committed to it early. It looks like the incident between Anderson and McMillan is now under review by race control, so we'll see if anything comes of that. And if anything does, then it'll be small consolation to Anderson. He's ended up losing out on a podium place as a result of this. Cameron Edwards, a full 15.5 seconds ahead of him now on the track. So at the very least, Anderson might get 3rd place back if there is a penalty. And this is what it was for. Just a little bit of contact there as they went to put the power down, and Yeah, you could argue there that it was a much faster entry and I'd say a more conventional line through the corner for Matthew McMillan. I'm not sure what happened on board with Anderson there, but yeah, it didn't seem very conventional to me. Oh, here we go then. Drive through for... yeah, hang on a minute. It looks to me like car 47 has been given a drive-through penalty for contact with the 22 of Matthew McMillan. Interesting, considering that Anderson was the one who got turned.
Now, hang on. I think we might see this being reversed.
No, there we go. It's been reversed.
The black flag has been removed from Anderson's car now, so I think might have just been the wrong key on the keyboard for race control there. But we will wait to receive official confirmation. Here it is. The 22 will receive the drive-through penalty down the lane, so that will see Anderson now back on that podium step.
Righto. So after that little wobble from race control, we do have that sorted out, and McMillan comes into the pits to serve that penalty, and it is a drive-through. Now, how much time will McMillan end up losing out of this? Anderson's just coming into the final corner now. It was a pretty big gap between them. I'm getting the feeling that McMillan might make it out of the pits by the time Anderson gets there. He's just crossed the limiter line and he emerges back onto the circuit in front. There he is right there in the distance. So, all in all, actually doesn't seem like the penalty has done much.
No, it did bring him back into contention. I was watching the relatives between both the drivers coming down there, and yeah, it looks like McMillan's come out with a 3.2 second advantage still over Tyrone. So whether Tyrone had a bit of a bobble somewhere else throughout the course of that lap, wasn't able to get close enough, but yeah, that keeps McMillan there in that third position now.
So yeah, podium almost out of the question now for Anderson unless there's a problem for one of the drivers ahead. What that has done for Cameron Edwards, though, is it's moved him up into second. So even more points on the board, going to just cement his championship charge at this point. And you see just how clean he's been driving. Edwards is one of, well, I don't even know, but it's in the single digits. I feel like Edwards is potentially the only driver to not find the wall at all over the course of this race. There's no damage on that car at all.
Yeah, so far it looks very, very, very clean at the moment. I'm not seeing any incidents or any scrapes up and down the livery there, but yeah, Mr. Consistency coming through with the goods at the moment.
Yep, consistency being the name of the game in a series that has mostly been defined by drivers making mistakes and losing it through corners. Well, Tyrone Anderson still trying to fight to protect fourth here. Jack Gray coming up behind him. And Anderson has just gathered damage over the course of this race. 2.5 minutes remaining. I think we're going to get one more lap after this one concludes. So not much time left for Jack Gray to try and stake his claim for fourth place after starting from the very back of the grid. Comparing lap times, well, Gray did a 41.47 on the last lap. Compare that to a 42.8 for Tyrone Anderson. That is 1.4 seconds gained in a single lap. How far behind is Jack Gray? 1.8 seconds. So if he manages to repeat that feat, Dan, we could have a final lap battle on our hands for fourth.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how this one will play out. And let's not forget too, Jack Gray did take the opening round win all that time back at Sandown as well. He drove very, very well there. So we know he can come through the field. I just see he got a little glimpse of the wall there on the run, still chasing down Anderson. But he has got a lot of work to do if he wants to try and gain that one extra little position now.
White flag, though, flying for Dylan Seitz. One lap to go for what has been a truly dominant performance tonight. Really, all he's had to do is just drive around. He got the start nailed, took advantage of the battle for second place behind him early on, And from then on, it was just a case of cruising around. There's a huge gap back to Cameron Edwards. It is around about 13.8 seconds. So he doesn't have to worry too much about pushing hard, but it seems he's still trying to do that. I mean, that bump on the inside of turn 4, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the V8s take that later on in the night, because it's certainly thrown up some excitement here in the 86s.
Yeah, it certainly has. It'll be an interesting one to see. A lot more weight over the back of those cars, more movement in the compliance with them, and a lot more power and skinny tyres. It's going to be interesting. But just to your point of Dylan Seitz as well, for someone who doesn't need to push super hard to come home with the bickies tonight, last time through it was a 1:39.99. He set the quickest lap of the race, and so he's still giving it the beans here to get home well.
Yes, indeed. The lines around the circuit don't always tell the full story. You might see them not run up against every single wall, but they're still putting down magnificent pace, and that is going to result in victory for Dylan Seitz in the final round of the Shannons Insurance NTE Series Dev Series. Brilliant job, but with a second place finish, nearly 14 seconds behind him, Cameron Edwards, as you said so many times this season, Dan, Mr. Consistency. It is yet another second place on the board for him and the Dev Series Championship title. Brilliant job.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal job there for Cam Edwards, and what can we say about him? He, with the exception of what was probably a bit of an odd night for him out at Montreal a couple of races ago, he has put that car exactly where he needed to do, kept it in either the second or the top step of the podium, and as a result, comes away with the championship tonight.
Yeah, big congratulations to Cam Edwards. We'll have a chat to him after all of tonight's racing has been concluded, once the V8s have completed their running, and we have crowned the main game champion as well. Well then, as all of the drivers find their way across the start-finish line, looks like John Van Ree is going to be the last car to finish here. We can go through our results. Still in sights, 15.9 seconds ahead at the end. Matthew McMillan getting third place behind the newly crowned series champion, number 11. And Tyrone Anderson finishing in fourth, but that could have been a second place for him if things had gone his way. Jack Gray, with a great recovery, didn't take part in qualifying, started at the back and gets fifth for his troubles. David Worrell gains 2 spots to finish in 6th place. Good performance there. Shane Newens, meanwhile, suffering some issues along the way, has to settle for 7th, and John Van Ree crosses the line in 8th spot. Michael Gore and Michael Power, unfortunately, both finishing a lap down after suffering from crashes throughout that race there for them. Well, that's going to end things here for the Dev Series for 2023. We still have the main game coming up, and we also have an opportunity to thank the brilliant roster of sponsors in line for the Shannons NTE Series. Of course, we should start with Shannons Insurance, who are long-term supporters of this championship and have been naming rights sponsors since the inception of NTE Series. Shannons is Australia's leading insurance provider for motoring enthusiasts, and Shannons Auctions is Australia's leading auction house for veteran, vintage, classic, sporting and modified vehicles, as well as classic motorcycles, motoring memorabilia and numerical number plates. Shannons have recently launched a new online quote feature as well. To get a quote on your car, bike or home insurance, visit www.shannons.com.au or phone 1346 46.
Next up, we have Pool Guys Adelaide, who are proudly South Australian-owned family business. The Pool Guys Adelaide have an extensive knowledge, experience in maintaining, upgrading and looking after all your pool needs. The Pool Guys have been a long-term supporter of the series, and for all your pool servicing and equipment needs, visit www.poolguysadelaide.com. They offer honest advice, have a great wealth of knowledge within the pool industry, and also offer high-quality customer service to ensure you understand the importance of pool care as well as maintaining your pool and equipment.
Yeah, of course. Pool Guys Adelaide, part owned by Josh Drake in the 888 Meanwhile, we have West Oz Roof Restorations here as well. They aim to provide you with an easy and hassle-free roof restoration and to give you the best possible job with the least disruptions. Most of their jobs can be completed in 2 to 3 days, weather permitting, and they don't have other jobs on the go at the same time. That way, they can focus on your job first and give you that great finish with a full 10-year guarantee. They're structured differently to the other roof restoration companies. They don't use salesmen to try and sell the job. It's the owners that do the whole process with you from start to finish. One of the 2 partners in the business is a registered painter and also the tradesman that will apply the 3-coat system to your roof. It includes 1 coat of primer and 2 coats of colour from a wide range of colour options. For more information on West Oz Roof Restorations, visit www.westozroof.com.au. You might get an opportunity to speak to series entrant Daniel Norris, who's one of the owners of the business.
Next up we have Hire NT, and if you're in the middle of a construction project in the Northern Territory and need plant hire equipment fast, the professionals at Hire Power NT can supply all your Darwin and Catherine plant rental hire equipment needs, with on-site delivery also available. Based in Yarrawonga, Darwin and Catherine, we're a locally owned family business with more than 30 years of industry experience. The vast range of machinery and equipment will accommodate all your domestic, commercial and industrial needs. High Power NT also only supply equipment and machinery in superior condition from 3 to 1 year old, so you have our quality assurance that it will perform optimally even under heavy workloads. From specialised hydraulic equipment to general tools through to heavy machinery, fully mine-spec'd High Power NT can service all your plant hire equipment needs. For all your Darwin equipment hire, visit Hire Power NT or visit hirepowernt.com.au. The team are happy to offer advice and arrange delivery for you.
Breaking Late Podcast is a motorsport-focused podcast, primarily focusing on the Repco Supercar Championship and the Formula One World Championship, as well as other series worldwide. Join your hosts while they discuss the previous round, as well as current news, and preview the next round in the championship. Breaking Late are running a special NTESeries podcast, chatting to winners and wrapping up each of the rounds for the 2023 Shannons Insurance NTESeries. You can stay up to date with Michael Gore and Mitchell Strelecki by searching Breaking Late on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube.
Virtual Racing School have supplied each of our race setups for the 2023 series and offering the winner of the development series a VRS coaching pack. VRS has a team dedicated to racing coaches, which will help you be your best. For more information, visit www.virtualracingschool.com.
Turn In Race Apparel are the series merchandise providers. If you're interested in any series merchandise, you can order your very own from nteseries.com.au/merch. Turn In offer fully custom clothing for your race team or club. No minimum order and fast turnaround times from series entrant Ross Thalen. Visit turnin.store for all your merchandise needs.
Tim Nichols Photography is one of Darwin and Northern Territory's leading events, corporate, sports and motorsport photography companies. TNP also specialise in weddings. However, they only do these at selected times throughout the year. Tim will ensure that his clients receive the personal service they deserve for their special day or event. Tim is one of the official series photographer for the NTESeries, and you can check out his work at www.timnicholsphotography.com.au for all of your NT photography needs.
Finally, Prestige Cinematography are the official development series sim photographer. They capture high-quality photographs from the virtual world, racing shots and livery reveals. Prestige Cinematography can do it all. For all of your sim photography needs, visit Prestige Cinematography, run by series entrant Brad Minchell, on Facebook. All right, we're getting ready now to gear things up for the Shannons NTESeries finale. And a full Zoom wall complement is here with us as well. Dylan Seitz back in the wheel. We also have David Worrell up there as well. John Van Ree having a steer in the V8 as well, plus a whole complement of others. And it looks like Dean Powers just joined us as well. Nice to see him there too. Blake Warboys running a different camera position this time around. We usually see him from the top of his monitor looking down, but apparently we're going to be seeing his screen view as well.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting perspective for us, just to see what makes him so quick around this series tonight, Reese.
Yeah, certainly. Running a single monitor, of course, which should be very interesting to see. Well, we're going to go for a very short break here on SimSpeed TV. When we come back, we'll be underway in qualifying for the final round of the Shannons NTE Series from Chicago.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
You're watching the Shannons NTE Series, the final round of the season from Chicago. Well, what a night it's been so far, with action aplenty as always in the Dev Series. But of course, we have the main game to finish things up. Blake Warboys in the box seat to win the title here. All he's got to do is keep it on the road and finish well, as he pretty much always does. Reese Gardner and Daniel Leet with you in the comms box. Jay Kennedy handling production behind the scenes. Well, Dan, we can take one more look at this circuit we're racing at here tonight. We've already seen the pitfalls it can cause for the drivers.
Yeah, it's a great little number that we're at to finish off what has been arguably a great season for the V8s with Shannon's NT series. And as you say, very easy when you look at it from a top-down series perspective. But as we saw in the GT86s just moments ago, very tricky to get the most out of the cars. Plenty of bumps and undulations for the guys to navigate their way around tonight. And these cars are going to be a bit of a handful for the guys. There's not a lot of runoff for them to, if they do make a move or run it into a wall, unfortunately. But it will provide some spicy racing. So the moves have got to be pretty well locked in early on. And it only takes the smallest little margin to slip up and cause what could be a big incident.
Yeah, absolutely. The lines on your screen demonstrate the layout, but when we get into the live pictures, you'll definitely see just how difficult this circuit is in an Australian touring car. Blake Warboys on top in the series standings. David Coleman about 80 points behind him, with Tim Nicol managing to find his way into third place. Dean Powell and Nathan Brown very close. Ash Barella in there as well. Got a nice gap back to Nankiville and everyone behind him. Really, it seems like the tightest battles are going to be the ones from 7th on back.
Yeah, those ones are going to be tricky. Still plenty of points to play for tonight, and a good finish, could see you maybe jump 1, 2, even 3 spots, depending on how you're able to navigate your way around this tight little circuit.
It will be interesting to see what the drivers can do around here, whether or not they'll be able to avoid getting into those walls that are absolutely all over the place. We're in qualifying at the moment. Josh Drake there in car 888, running a nice, simple WKMP Super Cheap Auto livery there. I know that we do like to roast white cars in sim racing circles, but I think it works pretty well on that livery. White, yellow, and red, never a bad color combination.
No, it looks good. It's a nice way to finish out. We've traditionally seen that car all dolled up in red, but the white's a nice way to finish off the season.
Yeah, we'll see what Drake can do. Set a good lap time around here. He's doing pretty well, all things considered. 125.3, and with a single lap completed so far, actually 2 laps completed so far in qualifying. We'll see if he can improve here. Coming into the park section, unfortunately, it seems like that is his qualifying run done there. Drake gets into the wall and escapes it back to the pits. Of course, they are allowed to do that in qualifying for the main game, because it is a closed qualifying session. Jake Burgess, one of the admins here at the Shannons NTESERIES, also having a run in car 100, looked like he collected the wall and has a bit of damage on his car. So this lap will not count for him, and it is the final of the 3 laps that he is allowed. Every driver only gets 3 opportunities to set a lap time here across 15 minutes.
We've got plenty of good times starting to roll in already. We saw Blake Warboys out there on his sort of warm-up lap on a 49, but we know he can get that car down into what is a 124.9, so plenty of pace there for him. Ash Barella out on a lap at the moment to 126.16. A little bit off the pace there, but only 0.3 behind Power. He might be able to maybe squeak that one up just a little bit there, as we see is that the 216 just running it into the wall, and that might be the end of that lap for him.
Yeah, certainly Robson, unfortunately, having some issues keeping the car straight there, with a good part of the front end gone, but makes it back to the pits safely. He is one of many drivers who has not been able to set a lap time here in qualifying. Ash Barella looking to improve on 4th, but it looks like he's going to bring that one in. Tim Nicol makes a late improvement to get to 3rd place, puts himself 10th ahead of Dean Powell. And Mick Power in the number 99, wheeling it around, trying to get a good time on the board. This is the start of his qualifying run, and looks like he's actually still counted on lap 0 as, oh dear, that is the number 21 car. Dylan Seitz having a big issue there. Seitz managing to get into 8th so far. So not too bad, all things considered, but it looks like everyone's struggling to avoid the walls here, Dan.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very tricky. And I mean, we just saw how good Dylan was in the GTs, and just losing the back end there under Power up towards turn 8. And that's a really tricky spot there, because you come in off a very narrow entrance and it kind of goats you into trying to carry that a little bit more speed than you need to. But we'll look to see there's another little lock-up for one of the WPMK entries. I think they may have just kept that car off the wall there, so that could be fortunate for them. Nathan Brown looking all right. He hasn't set a time as yet, though, so we'll have to keep an eye on him as he works his way around this course.
Yeah, what will Car 86 be able to do here? It looks like he is gearing up for the start of his first hot lap here. Let's see what this circuit is like in a big V8 Australian touring car. On board with Nathan Brown coming into turn 1. The track widens out here on the exit. You can get on the power a bit earlier than you think, but get it all the way across to the left for the braking zone of turn 2. Brown hooks up the apex nicely and gets on the power very smoothly. A little bit of a technical issue there for him. Now we come up to turn 3. It's flat out in these cars, but then you got to instantly get on the brakes here. Turn 4, this is where the bump is that caused a lot of problems in the 86s. Brown rides it very well and gets through the wide apex of turn 5, and I think that might have been a slight bit of a relief for him that he was able to get through that section cleanly.
Yeah, you just see a little bit of relief there.
Oh no! The commentators cursed him there, I think.
Well, hey, look, we've done well with that for a few drivers throughout the course of the week. I'm sure they're ruining us, jumping on board and having a look at their lap when that happens. But that was shaping up to be a good run there for Brown.
Yeah, it certainly was. Oh, well, he still has a couple of opportunities to get back out there. 5 minutes remaining in the session. And it looks like Nathan Brown is still touring around here. He's trying to preserve some grip in his tires because we mentioned it quite a few times this season. Tires don't last very long in these cars. They do have, and of course I speak in terms of pace, they do have an excellent period right out of the pits where they're super quick, but then the pace just falls off. So that's why Nathan Brown has been doing that slow out lap and trying to delay getting on the power as much as possible. Doesn't want to put too much energy through these tires. Let's see how this lap works out for him. Unfortunately, still seems he's having some technical issues, and he did run wide at the apex of turn 2. So this might not be quite the lap that Nathan Brown is looking for. Connor Nixon as well on an outlap right now, has not set a time yet. These Vermilion Motorsports cars always looking very nice. We saw them in V8 Scops last weekend, and they didn't quite have the luck they needed, so let's see if it works out for him here.
Yeah, and let's not forget too, Connor had a really good race first time out last week at Bathurst as well. One of the new and up-and-comers, and really was able to take it to some of the older guard in the series.
Across the line he's going to come to start his first hot lap. Just got to keep it out of the concrete. Way easier said than done. Seems like Nixon, Brown, and Ash Barella are the only drivers on laps at the moment. So I think that might leave us with almost half the field having not set qualifying times in this session. There goes Nathan Brown up to 5th. Excellent job there. Managed to get down a 126.134. So that is the benchmark here for Connor Nixon to try and match himself up against. In he comes into the park section of the circuit. Turn 6 looked nice. Now turn 7, down the hill, braking zone. Just keep it out of the concrete on the outside and then try and thread the needle through this very difficult section. Sweeper across a bit of a rise and plenty of bumps as they transition through a couple of intersections on the streets of Chicago. Rear end complained a little bit into the penultimate corner there for Connor Nixon. Will this be enough for him to get the time on the board that he needs? Oh, just catching the inside wall there. Hopefully that wasn't a 0x. Hopefully that lap still counts. It's going to be a 1 minute 26.0, and it does count. He moves all the way up to 5th spot.
That's a great lap there from Connor. I was just watching the sectors as he went through there. I think we all held a little bit of a moment breath there as he just caught that wall at the final corner, but good time from him there, solidly inside the top 10 up there in 5th. Now Ash Barella out on track, trying to see whether he can improve his time, formerly a 126.16. And he's got a little bit of work to do if he wants to regain that 5th spot again.
He's doing a good job keeping it out of the wall and doing those nice smooth lines. That's probably the most aggressively I've seen anyone try and tackle that apex. He might have picked up a 0x somewhere along the way because he's backed off here. And that was his final hot lap. So nothing more to be said from Ash Barella's camp. Now, It's just Nathan Brown left, and he has picked up some damage somewhere to the front left, so he is going to bring that one in, and that is going to conclude the qualifying session, I think. 16 of our 19 drivers in the field. Sorry. How many cars have we got? 24. My apologies. Completely reading the numbers wrong there. 16 of 24 drivers setting qualifying times. Now, among those drivers that haven't set times in qualifying, we have pretty much, quite a few of them are drivers who took part in the Dev Series. Edwards, Power, Anderson, and Van Ree. So what will they be able to do over the course of this 40 minutes, Dan? It will be interesting to see.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this all unfolds. If it's anything like what we saw moments ago in the GR86s, it's going to be a pretty tough one for all these guys out there. A little bit of late info as well. Dave Coleman will be out for this one, unfortunately connecting to the session in the wrong car for him. So a little bit of probably a sigh of relief for everyone else out on the field there, but I can guarantee you Coleman would have loved to have got back up towards the sharp end and challenged Blake for this one.
Well, Blake will be starting on pole position alongside Josh Drage, with Tim Nicol starting in third spot alongside Dean Powell behind. Nicol, learning of the problems there for David Coleman, will be happy to try and gain some extra points and maybe look at second place in the championship if things go his way. Behind them, we have Connor Nixon and Nathan Brown, with Ash Barella and Jake Burgess starting in 7th and 8th. On the 5th row and rounding out the top 10, Andrew Hoffman starts alongside Dev Series race winner Dylan Seitz.
Out of 11th tonight, we'll see Christopher Blanchard and Jack Gray alongside him. Mark Peck and Dave Worrell will bring up 13th and 14th respectively. Michael Gore and Shane Newens, row 8. And then we got Dave Coleman, who we'll see not in that one. Cam Edwards and Mick Power will be next up on the grid, followed by Matthew McMillan, and I believe that will be then Ryan Robson and Tyrone Anderson.
Yep, looks like John Van Ree and Andrew Texera will be bringing up the final row of the grid here. Well, they've all lined up and they're all looking for the green flag to drop. And it is not a staggered grid here in the main game. It's going to be a rolling start behind the safety car. And I think that is a sensible decision here. We've definitely seen the potential here for difficult standing starts. Not much room either side if someone spins up the wheels off the line. This is the format here. 40 minutes of racing, and of course the fuel is capped at 35 litres for the start of the race. We are going to be seeing those pit stops early, and just how early, Dan, is the big question, because this being a street circuit, huge potential for the safety car to come out.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential of the safety car coming through for this one. We might want to maybe put our bets down for the race and see what we predict. I think we might be in maybe for 2 or 3 tonight, but this will be a tricky one. I think, yeah, as you say, the rolling start will help the guys get away. The only thing I do worry about is those guys a little bit further in the back of the pack trying to apply that power as they make their way through the final corner, as we see Tyrone Anderson in the background there just lighting up the rear wheels a little bit.
A little bit of weaving as well from Dean Powell in 4th spot. Getting some heat into the tyres is often a good idea, and you might want to do a little bit of that, considering that the track temperature is 27 degrees Celsius. Not a huge amount of warmth in the circuit right now. It does match the air temperature, though. We are currently very early in the morning in Chicago. It's 6:30 a.m. in sim time.
Yeah, this will be, I think as we see these cars move around a lot more over the course of the 40-minute run, we'll really start to see the the groove develop here through a lot of these apexes as everyone puts down the rubber and runs their way through the race. But the opening couple of laps race are going to be really, really tricky to get the cars up to operating temp, get those brakes working where they need to be. And we just see there too, pit lane closed. So no one can take advantage of the sneaky drop it in the lane early on and try and clear that fuel stop. But yeah, we'll see those subsequent strategies then come into play a little bit later on.
It'll be interesting to see how the safety car queue works through here, because they are going around the circuit in double file, but the track does narrow up a fair bit around here. A little bit of extra room there. Looks like they've been able to maintain double file for the most part, and they will have plenty of time to form up through the last corner before we get things going. That is a zoom wall that we really like to see. That's 11 drivers who will each be getting an extra championship point for appearing on the Zoom feed tonight. All right, one more corner to go before we get the start going. Blake Warboys just doing one final launch test before he falls into line behind the safety car and then into the pits. That AI-controlled Porsche will come. Onto the start-finish stretch now, waiting for the call of the green flag. It is Blake Warboys versus Josh Drage on the front row, and away they go. Green flag went out a bit early there, and Warboys managed to get the jump. Drage under threat from Tim Nicol, who tries to get up the inside into turn one. Room is given all throughout the field, at least the first half. We've got a spinner there in the middle. Chris Blanchard is around, and it looks like the track's blocked. It is a car park down there.
Yeah, that was always going to happen. 3 wide action into turn one, never going to work there, as we see everyone trying to work their way through. Michael Gore, one of those drivers, caught up in that. Chris Blanchard, plenty of guys going backwards off the start here.
Incident noted from race control. They will be looking at that one further. Meanwhile, Nathan Brown and the number 86 trying to chase down Ash Barella here. They are coming into very difficult section of the circuit that has taken many a driver out in the past. A couple of lockups just up ahead too. I think that might have been Powell that slightly locked a front tyre on the way into the corner. But Blake Warboys having as clean a start as he wants. He is out in front and looks like he's starting to gain a little bit on Josh Drage behind. Will the drivers be able to avoid the apex wall here? Very difficult to get that done. But they all work themselves out as lap one is now nearly complete. Warboys has not had the biggest of advantages here. We've gotten a bit used to Blake pulling away from the field early. Doesn't seem to have happened here, Dan.
No, he hasn't got away probably as far as we would have expected. That being said, he's still currently the only driver in the 130s at this moment. But the guys behind Josh Drage, Tim Nicol, Connor Nixon, all doing a pretty good job just to keep him in sight at this early phase. But it'll come down to later on how close they can keep it when that strategy starts to come into the mix.
Right then. If the gap can be kept up, then Warboys might be under threat here for the race victory. Josh Drage has been driving very well here tonight. Here is the incident for Chris Blanchard getting turned around. And oh dear, easy does it. Watch Tyron Anderson behind. Oh, okay. Got into Mark Peck, and Peck went into Blanchard. So I feel like Tyron Anderson might be the driver in question for the melee that ensued.
Yeah, that's not a good look there from him, especially trying to throw it up the inside the way he did. As we see plenty of W, K and P cars in the lane there, all getting service. And that'll be a lot of fast repairs done and dusted. This one could work out relatively well for these guys, however, as we expect potential to see a safety car at some point throughout the course of this race.
Yeah, they could get all of that time back and then some if things go their way. The advantage for those drivers involved in that lap one crush is they can actually get their fuel stop out of the way from here, and they won't have to make a visit to the pits again. Well, fastest lap from Blake Warboys right away, 1 minute 25.3. That's only 0.4 off his qualifying pace. So things are looking good for Warboys up front. Also for Josh Drage, who's managing still to stick with him. That's Warboys' onboard view. And you see just how close the wall's seen from the outside of the cars. Check it out from the inside. That is fantastic viewing.
Yeah, it's a great looking shot of the rig there, and interestingly, Josh being one of only a few guys in the championship that we're aware of running just the single screen here, so lose a little bit of visibility on the periphery, but he's making it certainly work for him at the moment.
Drive-through penalty for Tyrone Anderson for that lap 1, turn 1 incident. So a night that is a little bit that has been wanting for Tyrone Anderson gets a little bit worse. This is Jack Gray, and oh dear, that's a bit of an issue there. Running extremely wide, coming into, I believe that was turn 4, and running straight on into the runoff area. Gray now a long way back, and it seems like he's actually retired from the race as a result of that. Meanwhile, battle out of the final corner here. And that's Tim Nicol versus Connor Nixon up ahead of Dean Powell, who's actually lost out a little bit.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Both those guys losing a position each for Nichols and Power. Nixon looking very, very racy there, though, now up into that 3rd position.
Yeah, he's put on a really good drive so far. Now that he's in a little bit of clear air, we'll see what lap times he can actually set, see if he can try and challenge Drage and Warboys at the front of the field. Warboys is leading by 1.3 seconds at the line, and it looks like that lead is extending. Meanwhile, Tyrone Anderson, well, he's just received a penalty, and things get even worse for him. Loses the car, and unfortunately, one of the other cars has to make their way around him. He does manage to get it off the racing line, but that is even more time lost and terrible damage for car number 47.
Yeah, it's looking very, very second-hand. That car is a
Oh!
going around here.
Dean Powell and Ash Barella involved in that one at a standstill, and that's right at the apex too. Every driver that comes through that blind corner is going to have to worry about a Holden Commodore sitting in their path. Barella does get it turned around. Dean Powell has to go backwards and wait for Barella to clear him before he does a donut. Actually, Barella is waiting for him there, and also making his way through is the damaged Cameron Edwards. He was caught in the lap 1 melee, and was the car I saw making his way past Tyrone Anderson when he spun. So, what on earth happened between Barella and Powell? Well, it looks like Barella might have the stewards looking at him for that incident.
Have a quick look back here at the replay. So it starts with, looks like Power just getting a little bit of a brush on the wall. Ash Barella trying to send one up the inside, which was never going to work in that scenario. And looks like maybe that was Josh there just coming through. Actually, I think that might have been Jake coming through there. So Jake Burgess doing a good job just to avoid that. But that move wasn't really on there for Ash.
No. Well, we will see what decision race control comes to for that one. Our two leaders, meanwhile, keeping quite a bit of space between them. Connor Nixon, I just saw hit the wall on the inside of turn 9. That was the fast left-hander, but he has managed to keep it going there. We're going to get a view also of the number 51 of Andrew Hoffman. Oh dear, that's a big lockup coming into, I believe, turn 1, and smashing the right front there. Now, what does the damage look like for him from here on out? Oh, that does not look good.
Yeah, very much shades of Michael Gore from the GT race we saw earlier on tonight. But fortunately, the wheels are still on the wagon there, and he's going to get it back. But the car is a little bit slow, and he's dropping a little bit further down the order now.
Yeah, well, into the pits Andrew Hoffman comes. And now the rest of the field continues on. Other cars to have completed a pit stop so far. Well, we saw Powell and Barella in there. Worrell and McMillan have both come in as well. Michael Powell is the last car on the lead lap that has come into the pits. And it looks like Tyrone Anderson also taking a visit to the lane, running a lap down. And Anderson is currently the last car running after Jack Gray's unfortunate retirement and David Coleman not being able to get into the session properly. The 669 of Chris Blanchard was the car turned around on lap 1, and he has got massive damage, still managing to run in 13th place. He hasn't pitted, neither is Cameron Edwards up ahead, who's found himself in the top 10 now.
Yeah, doing well, just keeping those pit stops held at the moment, and the pace not too bad for these guys. We watched them work their way around the lap a little bit more. Guys still continuing on pretty well. Nathan Brown doing a good solid job here, up one spot from where he started in 5th. But I've got to say, Reece, at the moment, drives of the night so far. Ryan Robson up 14 spots from where he started on, largely in part thanks to the incident. As we see a little bit of a moment for the 86 there. Does he keep it off the wall?
Yeah. Oh. Jeez. All right. It's about as close as you want it for Nathan Brown. And news coming in of a drive-through penalty for Ash Barella for that contact we saw earlier with Dean Powell. Makes sense that that decision was made the way it was by race control. That will be a dent in Barella's running. He has already pitted, and he will fall quite a ways down the order, I'd imagine.
Further back in the field, a couple of guys that have already seen the pit lane after that lap 1 incident. Dave Worrell and Matt McMillan, the WKNP cars there, just having a little bit of their own personal scrap out on the field. And these guys looking pretty racy here between the teammates, it must be said.
Yeah, very nice stuff. Looks like McMillan and Worrell both getting their repairs done, and check out a replay here of a further issue for Tyrone Anderson. This was where his race fell apart in the Dev Series, and yeah, clobbering the wall on the outside of the turn 4 exit. There's only one way that is going to go if you don't nail the turn in that very difficult corner.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think we're going to have to probably hand out the Mr. Pinball Award to Tyrone tonight, because he's found a few of those walls. But keep an eye here. Mark Peck now in the lane. This will be his stop down and away. And that hopefully should just be a quick repair and some fuel for him. So he should be right to go now throughout to the end of the race.
It's a pretty simple fuel calculation as Hoffman gets into the wall. Dean Powell moves by. And there is a slight bit of damage to the left front for the 51. And he'd already gone through quite a bit of damage, hadn't he? Running straight on at the first corner. He managed to get that thing repaired, but it's not worked out for him. Mark Peck, meanwhile, broiled in a little fight here with the number 30, sorry, of Andrew Teixeira. And Peck has just come out of the pits, I've noticed, so he's now trying to make up some positions. Will likely have fresh tyres on that car as well, and that might result in quite an easy pass into the 6th turn of the track. He manages to complete the move, get back up into 14th position. I guess now it's a case of waiting for the leaders to make their way into the lane, as well as Cam Edwards having just come out of the pits, whether or not he'll be able to make something of this race after suffering the huge damage he did. Interesting to note that Edwards is now ahead of Blanchard still. Has Blanchard come into the pits? Actually, he has not. Neither of them have come into the pits yet. They are just waiting for something to come out of this race. And there goes Blanchard up the inside of Edwards on the run up to turn 4. Don't usually see passes happening there.
No, you've got to have a lot of commitment to get that one up the inside there, but I think for Edwards, he's just trying to get that car around at the moment. One thing of interest that I did note after Mark Peck's pit stop too there, Reece, we didn't see him take a fast repair, so it is only early in the race, 13 minutes down, and plenty more racing still to go for this one tonight. But he's got that up the sleeve if something were to happen a little bit later on. there's the opportunity to get that fast repair done and down and away. So we'll keep an eye on that one as we see the guys still battling further down. That was Cam Edwards and Chris Blanchard. Those guys still going at it for 9th and 10th position respectively.
Dean Powell having just made his stop as well. He's come out behind Mark Peck, interestingly. Peck, it seems, is looking good for a good finish here, if that's the case. We've also got to remember, though, that Dean Powell had that spin earlier with Ashbarella as Anderson clobbers the wall again behind Mark Peck.
Yeah, got a feel for Anderson. He's struggling a little bit out there tonight in this car. Had a good race in the 86s there. Unfortunately, got rotated part way through, but yeah, just struggling a little bit tonight in the V8. Sorry, and then we see Michael Gore in the lane. All that damage getting quickly repaired for him after being the wrecking ball effectively in that turn 1 incident.
And Anderson's just collected the wall again, and he has got heavy damage. The engine is smoking. He's going to pull over at the side of the circuit. We could see a safety car from this. He will be requesting a tow from race control. He just went straight on into the barrier. Dean Powell behind him, coming into turn 1.
If we get a safety car here though, Reese, this could work out really well. We've got in the lane at the moment, we've got Warboys, Nichols and Brown already come in just before Anderson had this issue.
Hit the inside wall, and that just ricocheted him into the outside. Oh, still at a standstill here. Plenty of smoke billowing out of that stricken 47 Ford Mustang, and we haven't received any word from race control. Oh, hello. Tim Nicol, through the pit cycle, has jumped Blake Warboys.
Yeah, big difference in the pit stop times for both of those cars. Nichols stationary for 22.8 seconds, whereas for Warboys it was 36.9. It's nearly 37 seconds of fuel going into that car for Blake Warboys there.
Wow. All right. So does that mean then that Tim Nicol potentially underfueled it? Everyone has come into the pits anticipating a safety car, and it has just been called. Safety car, boards, and flags. So Josh Drage, having just come into the pit lane, probably won't lose out from this. How long will his pit stop be? So Warboys stopped for, 37 seconds. Actually, looking at everyone else's pit stop times, that 37.1 second pit stop time is a massive outlier. The pit times have actually run between 20 and 22 seconds. So I don't know what's gone wrong there for our championship leader, but Tim Nicol could get the effective race lead from here, or will he? Because Josh Drage has actually lost out to Connor Nixon in the pit cycle. There's a lot of shuffling going on.
Yeah, it's going to become very, very...
Oh! Oh dear.
Was that Drage and Nixon in the...
Yes, that was a big whoopsie because the safety car was at a standstill out of turn 1. Nixon slowed down. He had noticed the safety car there ready to collect them. In fact, they both probably weren't aware of the safety car being there and were taken by surprise. And then Drage just went right into the back of him.
Yeah, that's very, very awkward because, as you say, safety car being stopped on track as the leaders came to them. I wonder if the safety car was expecting Nichols and Warboys to be out in front. And with the way that pit stop cycle worked, we saw Drage and Nixon there, and here's a look at it.
Oh, no.
Nowhere for either of those two to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, coming out of the pits, they would have seen the safety car as soon as they've made their way out of turn 1, but I honestly don't know what to make of that. It's probably a little mistake at the very least, and a big error at the worst. The safety car has even picked up some damage here. Seems like no car can escape the concrete of Chicago.
No, and Drage is back in the lane now as well. So we'll have to see how that one unfolds, but I can guarantee Race Control will need to have a good solid look at how that one unfolded and get this one sorted. We're still got to see whether they're going to be able to pick up the leader, because it looks like everyone was able to continue on for one more lap in the confusion there.
Yeah. I have no idea what the situation is here out on track. The safety car is now catching up to the field and will move its way past Tim Nicol. And there we go. A semblance of order is now restored, but I don't know what Race Control's going to do about the incident between Connor Nixon and Josh Drage, because Nixon's been massively disadvantaged by that crash, and that happened under safety car conditions. So what's the procedure here?
Well, look, we'll have to wait and see, but you've got to say, given the way that unfolded, it was certainly not instigated by Nixon in that one. It was just Drage not being aware. Yeah, you could possibly throw it down to safety car not being in position of where it needed to be as well, but you're 100% right. Connor copped the rough end of the stick on that one, and that's now sent him back down into sixth position, where you would think he should be effective leader of the race right now.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions in my head at the moment. I don't know if a penalty for Drage would necessarily be fair, because it was a bit of a unique situation. You could argue that he could have kept more of an eye out, but regardless, it was unusual to see the safety car stopped there out of turn one.
The other thing too that makes it tough now as well is Drage was able to get back around, get a fast repair, and repair the damage on the car that he got from an incident that he instigated.
Yeah, Nixon is down in sixth place at the moment, and he's got quite a few lapped cars around him as well, it seems. Or has he? No, actually, all of those are for position. Jake Burgess up 3 spots, Nathan Brown up 2 spots. Yeah, so I'm sure Race Control thinking about what to do from this point on. The safety car has been instructed to drive away, though, so looks to me like we are going to go back to green flag conditions. Connor Nixon, I think, will be absolutely fuming from what's transpired.
Yeah, he will not be a happy boy behind the scenes there, and I don't think we got him up on the victory wall at the moment for the video feed, but yeah, there will be a lot of choice words being spoken about under the helmet, you can guarantee that.
Yeah. Well, either way, it's time to get back to racing action in the Shannons NTE series here at Chicago. It is Josh Drage and Tim Nicol, your top two. Blake Warboys is going to have to find his way past them here as the green flag flies, and we are back to racing conditions. Warboys already hard on the back of Tim Nicol, and Drage pulling away. Connor Nixon having a little look at Dean Powell. It was Dean Powell having a look at Mark Peck, my apologies, as Nixon makes his way through on Jake Burgess, already up a position. I tell you what, Nixon will have fire in his belly right now. After what happened under safety car, he will be driving the wheels off that thing to try and make up positions. Look at him close in on Nathan Brown.
Yeah, he's got the eyes on at the moment. He is going after Josh at this point in time. Josh has got to do what he's got to do and scamper away, but God, I don't want to see what's going to happen when those two get in there. Blake having a little bit of a look down the inside there of Tim Nichols. Doesn't quite get it done, but he's going to go the long way around and pulls the car now up into second spot. Great move from him there to catapult himself back up into second position.
Yeah, despite this being a street circuit, it does seem to offer up quite a few overtaking opportunities, and there's plenty of room to make a pass, particularly into the first sets and final sets of corners. Now, with Warboys free, it seems that Tim Nicol has a couple of Mustangs breathing down his neck here. Nathan Brown trying to keep Connor Nixon behind him. Gets a pretty good exit out of the final turn. And we come up on just under 17 minutes remaining in the race. Still plenty to happen here. I thought I heard a contact with wall sound. I think that might have been Nathan Brown who just clipped the inside of turn 1. Tim Nicol also locks up as Dean Powell here is trying to keep the 669 behind him of Christopher Blanchard. Interesting to see that Powell has fallen that far back. No, my timing screen was messed up once more. Powell is actually exactly where he should be right now, but you see just how hard everyone is pushing as he tries to make his way past Mark Peck here. Just tyres locking up all over the place.
Yeah, it's on the guys just working relentlessly on the feed and on the zoom wall there. Keeping an eye on that front Nick, and he's still likely to work his way up. The scrap here down to 10th and 11th, looking very racy, and Mark Peck just in front of these two as well, and he could become the cork in the bottle here.
It's looking interesting. The cars in front of them also fighting hard too. Ryan Robson has found himself 8th spot after starting 22nd. We haven't given him much airtime. Here's Nathan Brown and Connor Nixon. Meanwhile, Brown trying to get back past Nixon. The move was made off screen. I didn't mention it at the time, but also coming out of turn 7, Nixon had a little bit of a wobble and ended up hitting the wall. Nixon followed him in there, so they've lost even more time to Tim Nicol.
Yeah, still be the next one up the road, 2.8 seconds at this point in time. And Blake Wallboys all over the back of Drage. Here's a look at the replay of how we got it done. Looks like both cars with a little bit of sideways action. So run up towards the final corner there. Nicol's just getting it down the inside. And it's tough when you're on that inside spot there just to get the car squared and the power down. But he did enough, as we saw, into turn 1 there. Just runs it just wide enough to give a little bit of space. And on the power nice and early, and was able to pick up that position.
Yeah, beautiful stuff between those two. Warboys starting to close in on Josh Drage here. 16 laps will be completed. And at the line, we'll see what the gap is. The 515 of John Van Ree, meanwhile, having an issue coming out of turn 7. And oh, take it easy. Cars coming up on him. He does stop. But, oh, he's right in the middle of the circuit now. And ended up collecting one of his teammates as well in the process. Not a good look here for Van Ree as Brown is in the pits.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for him. I don't know whether it may be contact with the wall for Brown, but he's already been in the lane.
He's actually got a mechanical black flag as Nathan Brown. So evidently, one of those wall hits didn't work out too well for him. And
Yeah,
Warboys has made his way back into the lead.
Great job from Warboys there. Now, as you say, control of the race over Drage. We didn't see that one unfold, but looks like nice clean move. No damage on either of the cars there. Here's a quick look at how it all unfolded.
It was coming out of turn 2. Drage had a slightly worse exit, and Warboys was just able to slip on by through turn 3. Move was done before they even got to the braking zone. Beautiful stuff, and good respect given between those two rivals, but Drage is still right with Warboys here. Got to try and keep it out of the barriers, otherwise, though, he is going to drive away. Back to car 99 then. This is Mick Power, who's having a fight towards the back of the running order. Andrew Hoffman and Cameron Edwards are up ahead of him, and Power's down in 20th spot, 2 laps down. He's trying his best to work his way forward, but it's going to be difficult here with only 12.5 minutes remaining in this race. It looks like Edwards is getting better exits than Hoffman at just about every corner. So now it's up to Dean Powell to start looking over his shoulder in 10th spot.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on Nixon as well. He's not at the moment able to make any inroads into Nixon, so into Tim Nicol, sorry there. So I think he might have settled maybe for 4th position. We've still also not seen any comment from race control following that incident either. So I don't know whether it's been noted or looked at, but we will see. Here it is under investigation.
Yep.
And post-race, wow, that makes it, yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Obviously, you can tune into the Breaking Late podcast in the coming week, and they will have the full breakdown of that. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we'll be able to report much on how that will affect the race results here. And that is actually what I was looking at before that I mentioned. The run into the wall for Nathan Brown. That is what gave him the mechanical black flag that he's just pitted for.
Yeah, Josh Drage now in the lane as well. I wonder what that one's for.
That's damage. That's big damage. That wasn't there before. Drage has had a massive crash somewhere. It looks like actually he's had 2 in a row at turn 6 and at turn 7.
And he will have already used up the one quick repair that he had for the event as well. So here's a look how that one unfolded. We saw Blake Warboys get around him, lock the inside wheel right at the same spot where we saw Michael Gore and the GTs run into over the crest in towards turn 6 there. So that's plenty of damage, and I think he follows it up with another hit here into 7 there. And he's caught pretty well 3 of the 4 corners on the car.
Yeah, and he's still carrying that damage as he makes his way out of the pits, but I think the majority of the damage that's actually affecting the handling of the car has been repaired. Well then, battle for 5th and 6th, Dylan Seitz and Ryan Robson. Seitz started in 10th spot, and as I mentioned, Ryan Robson started out of 22nd, and I think Robson's done just about the best job of anyone outside of Warboys and Nickel of keeping the car out of trouble.
Yeah, he's done a really, really solid job. I mean, we saw him miss all that incident on lap 1 there, and that netted him a fistful of positions. We saw him up 14 spots, and as the race has gone on, he's been able to still continue gaining those few spots as well. The car looks very good, and currently they're sitting in that 6th spot. That's going to be a good haul of points for him to close out the championship.
He'll certainly be happy with his performance if he can maintain it towards the checkered flag. Under 10 minutes left in the final round of Shannon's NTE Series for 2023. And news about Josh Drage again. He is back in the pits. I saw him get into the wall once again at turn 7. And interesting to see that, well, that has further affected his race. Looks like incident on lap 18 between Connor Nixon and the car 30 of Andrew Teixeira. We must have missed that. No further action, both cars at fault. And that is certainly not a message you want to hear as a driver from race control.
No, it's an interesting one, although looking at that one, Teixeira would have been out of position. He's already a lap down on the field at this point, and probably doesn't need to be getting into the battles with the guys on the lead lap as they work through. But here's a quick look at the replay, and this will tell us how it all unfolded.
So here's Teixeira, and yeah, okay. I can understand why both cars would be at fault there. Of course, Nixon for making the contact, but Teixeira also looked a little unpredictable there, swerving a bit as Nixon was coming up to him. If he was going to make a move to either side of the circuit, it should have probably been done a few seconds before.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too. You hear it in racing all around the world. Move once and then hold your line, and unfortunately we saw a little bit of a double jink there from Teixeira. Looks like Jage now, that will be his night done. Already a lap down after the 3rd time or 4th time now through the lane for him as well.
Right then. Blake Warboys leading from Tim Nickel, and the gap is massive. It's over 8 seconds at the moment. We thought for a moment under the safety car period that Warboys would have to really work for this race win. And I mean, he has had to work for it, as he always does. But once again, seeing that gap, I can't help but wonder, what if that incident hadn't happened between Josh Drage and Connor Nixon under the safety car? Because they were able to beat Warboys and Nickel to the top 2 places.
Yeah, it's a lot of what could have been, and I mean, it would be interesting to see how that could have potentially unfolded, but it's one of those things, the walls, especially on a street circuit being as tight as they are, one wrong move and unravels all that intrigue that could have been.
Oh well, this will be the conclusion of the race coming up very soon. Looking at car number 21 of Dylan Seitz here, who's now found his way into 5th spot and chasing down Jake Burgess in the 100. Everyone's doing a good job of keeping it clean here. Burgess, of course, having found the wall a couple of times, but got some repairs done through his pit cycle. And we still have Christopher Blanchard sitting there in 7th spot behind Robson and Seitz, but Robson getting into the wall just a little bit. That won't do any lasting damage, but he has to be careful. That's another wall tap there coming out of turn 7.
Yeah, he's just pushing that little bit hard. Probably doesn't need to go quite where he is, but yeah, just trying to make every last little position to finish off the race.
I think that's just about the first damage that Robson's gained all race. And he's done it a couple of times in one lap. Just got to keep it together for a few more laps now. Out of the final corner they come. Seitz hasn't made much of an impression on Burgess up ahead. But Blanchard might be looking at potential 6th spot here if Robson's mistakes continue. And that would be a good turnaround for Blanchard, because remember, he was the car that was spun turn 1, lap 1.
Yeah, if he could get that, I can guarantee he'd be licking his lips trying to make the move stick. But the thing for Robson right now is he's got to just get the focus back on. Once you start making those little inconsistent moves and nudging the wall here and there, it does start to become more apparent throughout the course of the run. And as we saw on that last lap, there were 4 times where he collected the wall, and you can see plenty of marks down the left-hand side of the vehicle there. So just got to slow it down just a smidge, get it in there. He just wants to run it hard and fast. He's not leaving much on the table against Seitz here.
Yeah, he heard you say that, and he was like, no way at all. Send it out sideways at the exit of every corner. But just keeping an eye on stint lengths. It looks like all of these drivers pitted at the same time, and I presume it was under the safety car or maybe just before it. You can see just how much Robson is struggling for rear-end grip right now. He's getting on the power hard out of every corner, and I think that's actually hurting him. If he can back it off just a tiny bit, I mean, look at this. That is a bit too much wheel spin for a car that's extremely dependent on making the tyres last for maximum pace.
Yeah, you know, we've got 3.5 minutes still left on the clock here, but he's not leaving anything to chance. And unlike other series like Scopson, like being a fixed setup, the guys don't have any adjustment to play with the roll bars in these cars, which is so important in tuning that little bit of drivability, especially as the fuel and the tyres go away. So Robson's just got to knock it back just a tenth here, settle it down, try and cool those tyres off, because the more that wheel speed keeps up, the hotter they're going to get, the more we're going to see him further out sideways throughout the course of the laps.
Yeah, it's all about just backing off the throttle a little bit, making sure that you still get on the throttle at a reasonable pace, but not so hard that you end up spinning up the rears. Like that, once again. Christopher Blanchard is probably licking his lips here, thinking, yes, this is another position on the line for me. And, well, Dylan Seitz has actually fallen back a little bit as well. He is back in the clutches of Ryan Robson. Jake Burgess just sitting pretty out ahead of them. 2.5 minutes to go, and Blanchard has a look up the inside of the final corner, but not far up enough to get the move done.
I think if you're Blanchard at this point, as much as he's applying all the pressure, he might be worth just rolling back a smidge and carrying a little more speed. And as we say, he's right down the inside, locks it up.
Yeah, that was a bit optimistic there.
He had it in the bag. I think he was sort of forced into the move there by Robson, but it's that whole thing, and we've talked about a lot throughout the GT races, and now in the V8s. It's all about the momentum. Keep the momentum. The more you excite that rear, the harder it is to keep the flow in this track.
Yeah, such is the case of street circuits that are already quite low grip, combined with slow to medium speed right angle corners, followed by sizable straights. Tim Nicol, meanwhile, holding on to second place, but Connor Nixon is starting to hunt him down. Or is he? He just collected the inside wall at turn 9 once again. That's the second time I've seen Nixon do that. And if he doesn't manage to keep it out of the wall here, that podium might be out of the question for the 168.
Yeah, I mean, you can see him given every little chance to get it done and dusted, but he's kind of at that point now where one move too far, as we saw, from Josh Drage, it was one too many contacts into the wall, and that gets you the meatball flag, and you throw away what is a good haul of points there. Even if you come home in third, it's still a good achievement for the event.
Yeah, for sure. Tim Nichols looking very calm at the moment, isn't he? Just almost looks like he's sleeping in between corners here.
We might have to ask him that if he can hold on to that second place. 24 seconds to go. This should be the last lap, we would presume, at this point in time. We'll have to ask him, was he maybe trying to get that little bit of a nap in at the end?
Yes, I'm pretty sure after 40 minutes of racing at a very tough street circuit, you will have to have a bit of a rest. The white flag coming out for Blake Warboys, and it is now the final lap of the race. Interestingly, no, it is. It is the checkered flag. There goes Blake Warboys out of the final corner. And what a celebration it's going to be for him, because with yet another win on the board, he is the champion of the Shannons NTE Series for 2023. And he'll start his celebrations pretty much as soon as he crosses the line.
Yeah, great job there from Warboys. Swept the entire series, 6 from 6. Can't ask for much more than that, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. Sheer domination from Blake Warboys. Plenty of drivers tried, but none could quite succeed in getting close to him and beating him. Shout out to Tim Nicol as well. Super strong second place in the final round of the season. He should be very happy with how that one's turned out. And Connor Nixon holds on for third in a car that looks like it should be in a shed.
Yeah, very, very second-hand looking at this point, but we don't need to get them home. Just enjoy the end of the series, guys, and take a bit of a load off as you come home to complete your final lap for the event.
Well, Warboys is going to use this cool-down lap to go for a little drift around most of the corners here. I think it would be foolish to try drifting through that long left-hander, and Warboys, I think, wisely declining to do that, but hey, on the exit, you can put the power down and go for a slide. And he will bring that one into the pits, I'd imagine. And now he's going to keep it out on track. I think he might be doing some donuts across the start-finish line. That would certainly be a good way to celebrate. Or he could just go for the straight-up burnout. That works out too. Well, a job well done for Blake Warboys. And that's going to be a very nice snap for the WKNP social media. Confirmed, Blake Warboys is your champion for the NTE Series for 2023.
Yeah, fantastic job there, and Reece, I think we've seen a hell of a championship for Blake here in the V8, and then similarly to what we saw for Cam Edwards in the GT cars. Hard fought for these guys, 6 rounds, very tough competition out there, and for Blake there, definitely the class of the pack.
Yeah, looks like Blake just having a little chat with someone in the real world about potentially his championship win. We will have to wait a little bit longer for a chat with Mr. Warboys, but I think while we're at this, we can go through the unofficial race results for round 6 here at Chicago. Blake Warboys winning by 12 seconds over Tim Nicol. Connor Nixon completes the podium. Jake Burgess finishing in 4th place. Strong performance from him. Same for Dylan Seitz, up 5 positions to 5th. Ryan Robson gaining the most positions in the field from 22nd to 6th. He should be very proud of that one, with Christopher Blanchard recovering to 7th after almost being taken out on the first lap. Dean Powell finishes in 8th, Mark Peck in 9th, and Andrew Hoffman will recover to 10th after a very dramatic race for him.
Coming home in 11th, we saw Nathan Brown having a good fight there right to the end with Cameron Edwards. Matt McMullen getting home there in 13th tonight. Michael Gore, after his issues on the lap 1, is the final car on the lead lap there in 14th. John Van Ree comes home tonight in 15th, followed by Dave Worrell, Andrew Teixeira, Mick Power, Shane Ewens, and Josh Drage down in 20th spot.
Yeah, Drage eventually retiring from that one after being in contention for victory early on. Tyrone Anderson also retires from the race, and it's the same for Ash Barella and Jack Gray. Unfortunately, David Coleman not even making it to the start. Could not set times in practice or qualifying, and well, he'll certainly be hoping for better next season when it eventually comes around. Well then, now that everything has been sorted, we can bring in first off our Dev Series champion. Cameron Edwards joins us in the commentary box. Well, Mr. Consistency is what Dan has called you all season, Cameron, and looks like more of the same there. It's managed to net you the title in the Toyota 86s.
Yes, I had a very consistent run. It wasn't through a lack of trying not to win. It was just I was a little bit disappointed in myself at Sandown. I made a silly little error, and then I kind of backed it up at Daytona as well. I made the same little silly error, so went in a spot to win. But consistency is the game in championships. You've got to be scoring points every round, and we did that this season.
That you did. What do you think was the highlight of your season? Of course, minus the final round where you were confirmed as champion.
A win at Bathurst in any form, whether it in the real world or in the virtual world, is always a highlight. So that was a really good win. But I suppose the highlight for me was just being able to run with the front guys in the first few rounds. It was really good, nice and clean. Just had to avoid the crash waiting to happen, which seemed to happen every round. The same driver looking for a spot to crash, and he just happened to do that when he was around me at Gilles Villeneuve. But that's all right. It's one of those things that you have to negotiate when you're a driver driving for the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of crashes, they did seem to be quite common in the Dev Series this season. I think quite a few drivers were having trouble with the rear end of that car. What were your thoughts on the handling of it?
Yeah, it was a little bit nervous in the rear, and it took me a while to get my head around how to negate that. I found that if you change down gears too quickly, it became too light in the rear. And with no brake bias to help you, you've kind of just got to modulate the brake a bit as you go into the corner. It is a very taily car, and you can't throw it into a corner. It just wants to swap ends, and being nervous in the rear is not a car that I enjoy driving, but I managed to find a happy medium in the GR86 and really enjoyed it in the end. It was really good. I wasn't as fast as Dylan. Dylan's he's on another plane, but yeah, it was good to have a fang around in those cars. They're a really nice car to drive.
Well, you have a championship trophy now, and I guess now the floor is yours, Cam Edwards. Is there anyone you'd like to thank? Any partners, sponsors, people who helped you out on your way to that Dev Series championship?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, I have to thank Jazmat Steel Fabrications. They've been on board with me from day dot with my online racing, and without their support and the constant niggle that I get if I make a mistake, it's I couldn't be doing this sort of stuff. V-Race Experience here in Perth, John and Barry have always supported me to allow me to do this outside of hours of work, obviously, but they're supportive of being part of the series, and that's been great. Nitrous Formula, Tony's always been a supporter of mine throughout real world and virtual world stuff, so I can't thank her enough. She's a great pillar of support, and she's a good supporter to have in your corner. Brent Peters from Lux Performance, he supplies all my race gear in the real world, and he helps me a little bit with all the stuff that I need for the virtual world as well, so I can't thank him enough for always being in my corner. To Jake and Shannons Insurance, it's great to have you guys on board. Clay Richards had a great weekend over at Winton in the Shannons TCR car, so Shannons have been supporting motorsport for a long time, and it's really great to see that they're into the virtual world as well, helping out. So, and all the other series sponsors who help out Northern Territory ESeries, without their support, Jake couldn't put on this sort of stuff for us to have fun, and we're the ones who benefit from it from their support. So I can't thank all them enough. And to SimSpeed TV for again putting on a great broadcast and making us drivers look good, even though we might be not as clean as what we portray. But without Jay and all you guys in the commentary box, this sort of stuff wouldn't happen.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Cam Edwards, and a fantastic job. Congratulations. Enjoy your Dev Series Championship celebrations. And now we can go through the podium interviews here for our main game, Shannon's NTE series. I think what we'll do here is go in reverse podium order. We'll start, of course, with Connor Nixon, who managed to finish in third place after quite a dramatic event, Connor. What were your thoughts on that incident that happened under the safety car?
Oh, I don't think you want to hear my honest opinions, but
try and filter them somehow.
Very upset, to be honest. It wasn't. I thought I'd at least get a redress for that. It was bit weird, very weird. Like just getting barged, then everyone goes by, past the safety car. Was like, oh, okay. But I don't know. I was just here for fun tonight, but yeah, if I was on for a championship, I'd be pretty upset, that's for sure.
Well, regardless, there is a bit of a silver lining you can take out of it, and that is that you are clearly competitive in this series, and jumping in for the last couple of rounds, you've really shown that you can take the fight to the other drivers in the series for podiums. So all in all, not all bad.
No, not all bad at all. I had some really good battles with Tim and the rest of the boys on the restart, and no, it was good fun. Like it really was good fun. Like I said, it was just a bit of fun to jump in, and all the boys in the Discord all having a laugh and having a good chuckle. But probably next season we'll see what happens. But then on to East Coast, I guess, because East Coast run out as well, I guess. So bit of a double header, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And what are your thoughts on the Chicago street circuit as a track for these V8s? It's certainly reminiscent, I suppose, of some of the street circuits we have here in Australia, like Sydney Olympic Park comes to mind. But yeah, it's very difficult to keep it out of the wall here for sure.
Yeah, 100%. It's an awesome track. I love it. I'm a bit of a NASCAR fan, and Gizzy's a good mate. So, knowing that he's coming over here to go race, it's going to be interesting. And driving around here, mad respect to the rest of the, those NASCAR boys going here, because, yeah, it's so hard. Like, I was pretty much scraping the wall every 5 seconds. I was saying to the guys in the Discord, if the mirrors registered, that they just wouldn't be there. You know, and it's a very fine line from just scraping the wall and absolute tapping them and being a ping pong ball. So yeah, good track, really good, bumpy. You know, it's hard to use the brakes. It's hard for turning. Setup was a bit understeery, so it was a really good challenge. And the tires went off after one lap, so it was so much fun to slide around. And yeah, catching Tim was just a good little battle there for sliding around for I think 20 minutes. So yeah, no, it was good fun.
Very good fun indeed was for us in the comms box too. Well, P3 on the board for you, Connor. Who would you like to thank for it?
So yeah, first up, Vermilion Motorsports. Just joined the team a couple of months ago. Having a heap of success recently. Runner up in the NZ Supercars series recently, so huge success there. Then yeah, sponsors. Let me just pull them up so I don't look like an absolute buffoon. I am sponsored by RSW Graphics, Dr. Proxy, BMG, Turn-In Appeal. And I'm just trying to think. Dr. Proxy, I think I've said that. I think that's about it. Let me just scroll up so I can definitely confirm that. I feel like an idiot right now, but give me a sec. Yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Well,
and Next Level Racing, sorry, and Race Labs overlays. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, good. No worries, Connor.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks very much for joining us anyway, Connor. Enjoy your podium celebrations. Now we're going to move to second place, Tim Nicol. Daniel Leake going to have a chat to him about how his race went.
Yeah, thanks there, Reese. Tim, great to have you back in the commentary booth, mate. We saw you up here, P3, round 2, and now you've got that one step higher. Talk us through your race. Looked like a lot of fun from where you were sitting. The car looked very good, and you found yourself in a great little scrap at the end there between yourself and Connor.
Yeah, no, it was hi guys. Thanks. It was a good race. Went in a little bit nervous, knowing that just holding in third position there overall in the championship, I needed to just do a clean run. But the lucky thing was we didn't have V8 Vets, our normal league, running on the Thursday. So this week I got a fair bit of practice in. But yeah, a few mistakes from the boys helped. I don't know how I jumped Blake in the pits, but somehow, I don't know, that gave me a little bit of boost. And then I seen Josh Strage hit the wall and I was like, all right, just take it easy. But I'll tell you what, Connor Nixon, he is a machine. And the amount of time he was making on me with a bent car, unbelievable.
Yeah, well, if we go back to the pit stop there, it looked like you're about 10 seconds quicker than what Blake was, so I'm sure we'll have to definitely find out what transpired there for him. But yeah, we were quite surprised. We saw the jump for yourself there, looked at the time and went, well, either something's gone awry or you've nailed it pretty well on the head there to get up to where you needed to be. And then obviously we saw what happened with the safety car. But yeah, you're right, yourself and Connor there worked very, very well at the end. And mate, it's a cracking drive. How do you find Chicago from what we've seen throughout the course of the season so far?
I'm not a big fan of street tracks. Yeah, Long Beach is one of my worst tracks, and every time I come, they're so bumpy. But yeah, I just found a sort of holding a tool of gear, going around a few of the corners just to keep it a little bit less twitchy. It's quite nervous on this track. I did iRacing did an update halfway through the week, so we had to get used to a few different corners, and it felt a little bit narrow compared to what it was on the previous sort of program. So yeah, it was a bit of fun. But yeah, it's just got to stay off them walls. One hit and it's all over. So I was just touch wood that if I come back to another street track, I can do the same again.
Yeah, definitely. And just as we come to the end of the season, any standout highlights for yourself?
Probably tonight. Yeah, like another podium with pressure. I did hear a little birdie told me that Dave Coleman entered in the wrong car. Sorry, Dave, but that would have been a good battle up there at the top end. So But yeah, tonight's probably the bonus. I've got some supporters. I've shared with my work colleagues that I'm representing the territory in NTESeries. So trying to get a few people behind it, and yeah, hopefully I'll wait and see what the points looks like at the end. But hopefully I've held third, or hopefully jump Dave Coleman. I'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. We'll keep an eye on that when it all unfolds, mate. But look, congratulations on a stellar second place tonight, and all the work that you've put in behind the scenes over the course of the season for all the photography that you've put up. The shots look fantastic there, and I'm sure all the guys thoroughly enjoy it. But before we let you go, mate, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to?
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for the kind words, much appreciated. You guys, broadcast, commentary, race control, Jake and the boys, and obviously my team, Quantum Pecky's Performance Racing, and the boys there. I did see Van Loon didn't make it tonight, but yeah, big shout out to them. Obviously the wife always allowing me to jump in the sim and have a play, so yeah, and go represent NT, Northern Territory.
Congratulations, mate. Well, again, thanks for your participation and support throughout the series. And look, we can confirm as well, third for you in the overalls for the championship as well. So congratulations there also.
Awesome. Love it. That's nice. Thanks, guys.
No worries. Have a great night. And we'll bring up our round and series champion, Blake Warboys, and Reese is alongside him.
Indeed. Well, congratulations, Blake. 6 from 6, and it is a dominant championship victory for you. Must feel good getting the win once again here at Chicago.
Yeah, it's feels good getting the clean sweep of the series, and to get the win on such a tricky circuit like Chicago is pretty awesome.
And we had a bit of a chat with Connor Nixon about just how tough this street circuit is, but from what I've seen, tends to suit the V8s pretty well.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Definitely not a favourite of mine. Personally, I find it pretty boring. Just there's not really, yes, it's got bumps in that, but to me it doesn't really have any character. It's all sort of 90 degree or a sweeping left. So, you know, to me it's quite boring, but can produce some good racing. So yeah.
Well, what were your thoughts on the safety car and how things were sorted out in the midst of all of that? Also, your pit stop. It seemed like it took a lot longer than it should have.
Yeah, well, the safety car obviously came out while I was in the pits, and I had 20 odd seconds of damage, so I knew I had a little bit of a buffer, so just sat there for a little bit just to get a little bit of the damage sorted, but just sat there for a bit too long, and that's what allowed the boys to jump me. And then yeah, the bit of the confusion, yeah, just that stuff can happen when such a tight track, and you know, everyone's so spread out, it's sort of hard for them to pick up who the leader is at the time, especially with everyone jumping in and out of the pits. All the relatives go up in air a bit, but they got on top of it pretty well, so congrats to Race Control for bringing it back under control.
Yeah, bring it back under control they did, and in the end you managed to put the move on Tim Nicol and get back past into the lead, coming away with the win. It must be an excellent feeling to be once again back on top in the Shannons NTESeries after I believe finishing second in the championship last year.
Yeah, it's great to have a full consistent season in the NTESeries this season after, you know, getting caught up in a few incidents last season. So it's great to have a full, basically a faultless season. So it's awesome to have Tim, awesome to race against and very respectful. And then yeah, teammate Josh just got a little bit loose and was able to get past there as well. So, but he was driving really well until he slapped the wall. But yeah, good to get the series crown and hopefully come back next season and try to hold on to that crown.
Excellent stuff. Well, who do you have to thank for your race and championship victory, Blake?
To the team, WKMP Sim Sports, Wodonga Carts and Parts, Super Cheap Auto, Rebel Sports, BCF, MacPack, Pool Guys Adelaide, Barella Cabinets, Bay 21 Coffee Beans, LGC Images, and Dave 37 Racing for all their support. It's great to be able to represent all those great brands and people this season.
And we'd like to thank you for joining us one last time in the commentary box, Blake, for the Shannons NTE series for 2023. Round 6 at Chicago is concluded. Daniel, what a fantastic season it's been. Certainly a lot of drama and a lot of great performances as well from people like Blake.
Yeah, Reece, we've seen it all, whether it was in the development series or in the main V8 races as well. All the racing was top notch. Yeah, there might have been a few little incidents along the way, but it sort of spiced it up and definitely gave a lot of guys, room to move and challenges to go forward and see whether they could, pick up another position going into the next one. But all in all, fantastic series. Well done to Jake and the guys for doing what they need to do behind the scenes, and race controllers, all the drivers pointed out as well. They do a pretty selfless job there in keeping all that moving smoothly, and still got a few things to sort out after the events of tonight. But without all that, and yourself and Jake, Jake behind the cameras, we don't get to put on a great series. And I think it's been fantastic watching it all go through for the last 6 rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic stuff, and we want to thank you all for joining us across the course of this 6-round championship, and we certainly hope that you'll be able to join us again for next season when it starts up. A big thanks to all of our series sponsors, which you can see down the left-hand side of the screen as well, and massive thanks to Shannons as well for their title sponsorship of the NTE series. Blake Warboys confirmed champion in the V8 category, and in the Dev series, Cameron Edwards is your champion. I'm Reece Gardner, it's Daniel Leet with me in the comms box, and Jay Kennedy handling productions behind the scenes. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, we say thank you for watching, thank you for such a great season, and we'll see you next time.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.